there. I won't speak for anyone but myself. You know, this is such an effort just to try to really understand all of this, and it is complicated. This document here, you can not see inside, but you can see the thickness of it. This, when we refer to the permit application, that's what this is. I told Robert that I assumed the permit application was about like this, and this is in fact what it was. So there's a lot of information that is at play here. I think and hope that a lot of people got questions answered today, and some questions that they now have. And I'm sure council has questions that they still want to pursue. But I hope we made some good progress, and I think Robert certainly provided a lot of information. Okay, well, if you recall back in the draft agenda section, we added a second presentation today.
Were you going to finish up?
Yes, thank you, John. At our break, John reminds me that we took formal action on one thing that we wanted to do with regard to dredging, in giving them the go-ahead, but we did not take formal action on the second thing that we talked about wanting to do, and that was moving Marys and Turtle Creek, giving permission or the authorization to move them back so that they could be done after the permit for the other waterways and in conjunction with them. So,
I have a motion.
Please.
Okay, I move that we postpone work on Marys and Turtles Creek, and that work be conducted in conjunction with the South Jinks Creek project once approved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. In discussion about that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Well,
What's the next presentation?
we'll do that right now.
Okay.
The good news is the second presentation, we've limited them to 3 hours for their presentation.
But they have to buy lunch.
But they have to buy lunch. Now I'm starting to consider it. I would like to introduce Neil Gilbert and Todd Goodwin, who are going to talk to us about some recent legislative activity and follow-up regarding seismic airgun testing. Neil, I think you're going to start.
Good morning. I promise we'll be slightly under 3 hours. So first of all, do I need to do like the public comments where I introduce myself, my name, address, or? Well,
Not
I think I will do
necessary,
that.
but go ahead, yes.
All right, my name is Neil Gilbert, and I live at 1150 Seabourn Way, which is the Cape Side neighborhood of Sunset Beach. And I want to thank Mayor Weiss and Town Council for, on such short notice, adding us to the agenda. This is something that has just arisen recently. It seems like South Carolina is far ahead of us in this, though. Whether they had prior knowledge or advanced warning. But I'm here to speak to you about our beaches and about our ocean. I'm speaking to you under 4 capacities. I'm speaking to you as a former member of the Sunset Beach Environmental Resource Committee. I first want to commend the council. I understand you are revisiting bringing the ERC back. I think that would be a tremendous idea. The concept is great, especially in a town like Sunset Beach where we have so many environmental issues. I'm speaking to you second as the co-founder and past president of the Brunswick Environmental Action Team. The other 2 co-founders of that group just happen to be here in the room at the moment. We have Councilwoman Jan Harris and Dr. Richard Hilderman. Three of us, as an extension from the ERC, restarted BEAT, and we have now grown to over 450 members, not just here in Sunset Beach, but up to Leland, Oak Island, Holden Beach, Ocean Isle Beach, Charlotte. We're now covering the whole county. I'm also speaking to you as a teacher of marine biology and environmental science for 30 years. And finally, the most important reason I'm speaking to you today is I'm a concerned citizen of Sunset Beach. This is where my wife and I have decided to call home. We love it here. We've been here since 2010, and we have no plans to go elsewhere. The main reason I'm speaking to you, I mentioned for my love for the beach and the ocean and our town. I mean, that's why we moved here, because of the beach, and I'm sure many other people have done the same. Shortly after Thanksgiving, the exact date was November 28th, Secretary Zinke ruled that 5 companies will now be free to explore seismic exploration, seismic testing, and blasting, which will eventually lead to offshore drilling. My concern is once they drill, they will spill, and we could kiss paradise goodbye. All right. This is why we're here. We don't want that to happen. I applaud the Sunset Beach Town Council for the reason that in the past you have voted 5-0 to offer a resolution opposing offshore drilling. So I know you feel as passionately about our beaches as I do. So thank you. I also thank you. Last summer, the Brunswick Environmental Action Team had a rally here in the park, and we had over 200 people on a rainy day show up to stand up to speak out in defense of our ocean, speak out for our shore and for our beaches. With all that being said, I'm asking the town of Sunset Beach, remember all together in this, and this certainly is not a partisan issue. We know from Maine to Florida, we have Republican and Democrat congressmen who oppose offshore drilling. This is not political at all. This is one area where I strongly believe where we could all work together, Republicans and Democrats together. You have a South Carolina governor who's a Republican and his attorney general who's a Republican. You have a North Carolina governor who's a Democrat and North Carolina attorney general who's a Democrat, are on the same side. They have issued statements that our coast is not for sale. And we got to work together on this. And what I'm asking you is to take one step further. Recently, the Southern Environmental Law Center has filed suit to protect their beaches. 16 towns in South Carolina have already signed on, but I do not know of any towns in North Carolina. So I'm asking you, once again, to be the leaders in protecting our environment. Somebody has to do it. Our neighbors in North Laurel Beach have joined in this lawsuit. Pawleys Island, Charleston, Beaufort, or Beaufort, I guess, in South Carolina, Hilton Head, along with environmental groups like Oceana, the North Carolina Coastal Federation, Surfrider, the Sierra Club, all have joined in this lawsuit. I know it's asking a lot of you, but you've already done a lot by protecting your resolution of 5-0 to stand up for our coast. We have 15 towns out of the 19 municipalities in Brunswick County that are against offshore drilling. Recently, in this past year, Calabash and Leland and St. James have joined on. The other 4 towns just don't have a resolution. They're towns like Belleville and Navassa, which obviously the beach may not be as much of a concern for them. By joining this lawsuit, perhaps Holden Beach, Oak Island, Bullhead Island, Wilmington, Carolina Shores, Rhodesville Beach, they will all join behind with you and stand up for our coast. I'm afraid that once they drill, the reason why we moved here, and we know from stats, which Tom's going to give you a little economic background on this, we know that this isn't going to be the same place that we moved to. And we're all in this together. It doesn't matter what political affiliation you are, if we have oil on our beach, it's going to affect us all. So the greatest Christmas gift you can give to the residents of Sunset Beach is to join the Southern Environmental Law Center and the Southern Environmental Law Project's lawsuit to oppose offshore drilling. Because right now, there are 5 companies that have been given permission to drill. Only one of them is American. And, well, to do seismic testing and then drill. And we just can't let that, the only thing that's standing between them drilling and doing seismic testing is now our towns and our government, leaders like you. So I'm asking you to please consider taking it one step further, putting yourself on the line, being the leaders for North Carolina. So thank you very much.
Well, good morning or good afternoon. My name's Tom Goodwin. I live at 1080 Seabourn Way here in Sunset Beach. I think first of all, I'll give you a little bit of my background because you're probably wondering why should you listen to me? I mean, I'm just a guy up here at the podium. For 10 years, I worked at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. I did fiscal research for the Governor, General Assembly, and the Board of Education. And then the last 18 years of my career, I worked as a chief financial officer in 2 school districts in the state of Michigan, where my scope of responsibility included managing over $100 million in debt. Part of that responsibility included looking at things like property values, employment, and things of that nature. So we would send this information to Standard & Poor's and Moody's and whatever. And I'll say this at the outset, that my school district, of course, the state of Michigan was heavily dependent on the automobile industry during the recession. And as things started to get bad and the country got a cold, Michigan got pneumonia. But I'll also say this, my school district was much more economically diverse than Sunset Beach. We at least had other major employers besides General Motors. Sunset Beach does not. We're pretty much 100% tourism. So a lot of the justification that's being floated around for launching into offshore drilling is to create jobs. But, you know, what happens if an oil spill happens here? And we know that that does occur. Deepwater Horizon was a rather horrific oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico. 9,000 jobs were lost in Louisiana. And then Taylor Energy, a more recent oil spill that was discovered, has been leaking for 14 years, and it had been leaking for 6 years before anybody knew it was leaking. So we know that these things can occur. Looking at the current economic base, what's at stake here in Brunswick County and Sunset Beach, tourism accounts for almost $550 million of the local economy. As far as jobs, 5,650 jobs are directly tied to tourism. This includes restaurants, vacation rentals, and every other business will be indirectly impacted. If there's an oil spill and people leave the area, you have fewer customers that will negatively impact your business. Bonnie Cox with the Brunswick County Tourism Development Authority stated, tourism is the backbone of the Brunswick County economy. U.S. Department of Interior did a study along the Atlantic coast. 1.4 million jobs are dependent on a healthy ocean ecosystem. So far, 48,000 businesses have come out against offshore drilling along the Atlantic coast. And the question is it really worth the risk? Are we willing to risk everything to add a few jobs in an industry that has the potential to damage everything that we have? I'll close my statement with a story from Aesop's Fable. You all maybe remember that besides the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. It's the fable of the dog and its reflection. The dog had a piece of meat, and it was walking around and walked across up to a river, and it saw in its reflection another dog with a piece of meat. And it lunged at that other dog, dropped the piece of meat that it had, and ended up with nothing. And that's kind of the situation here. The moral of that story is, he who covets all loses all. So that's all I have. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Do you both have information that you can share with us?
There's a attorney in Chapel Hill whose name is Blakely Hildebrand. Mayor Weiss, I will give you this whole paper right
Oh,
here with the phone,
okay.
so you don't have to write this down.
Okay, thank you.
We've been advised, once they knew we were addressing you today, that they said, you have questions, obviously, because I don't know anything about making a lawsuit to join or anything here. Obviously, Attorney Richardson could probably help us in this. I get the feeling it's not a very costly endeavor with these 16 towns who joined in so quickly and all these. I believe the Southern Environmental Law Center is carrying, I don't know if you're a rider as part of this. You have to follow, and I just learned this, an amicus brief. I always thought it was amicus. And you would file that as a friend with the law, I guess. And you would do that. And I have another attorney, the one who led this in South Carolina, her name's Annetta Thompson. And she's with the South Carolina Law Project. So I have both their email addresses, their phone numbers here. I think they made it so easy for you to join. And it sounds like it's not a financial endeavor or hardship to the town at all. I'm sure it's more symbolic than anything. But you have proven we voted to oppose offshore drilling 5-0. That was symbolic, but it sent a loud message that the people of Sunset Beach, the council of Sunset Beach, we know are important why we're here. And so it's getting a little scary now. We're getting to the point where these permits are being issued to these seismic testing companies. So I will give this to you, and then I don't know you or Mr. Richardson will follow up on it or what or how it works. I'm sure you have to discuss it amongst yourselves, but I thank you very much for giving us the time and allowing us to do this so quickly on such a short notice. So thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you. Council members, do you have any questions for Neil or Tom today?
I do.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure if you can answer them. I'll try. The first thing that appeals to me, and I encourage Sunset Beach to take action, is that we should be able to update our resolution and definitely at a very low cost process, update our resolution to include seismic testing and being against offshore drilling. Part of the question I have is when we did the resolution for offshore drilling before, we had organizations that we were kind of resolving and informing that we wanted to oppose this.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the question is, if we make a resolution, who are we telling this to? And what kind of wording do we put on it? Which goes into the second part with the law thing, and you didn't answer it, but you gave us a couple of lawyers. We really need to know what kind of costs are involved in joining that. What other types of responsibilities or implications we have for the town in doing that, any cost and liabilities. So before we jump into, I'm more than willing to jump into a resolution. I'm a little bit more cautious about jumping into a lawsuit until we know some more details.
Right. I'm sure Attorney Richardson, Mayor Weiss can look into the cost. This kind of just came at us rather instantly. We just saw that South Carolina was doing it, so we said, let's get Sunset Beach on board. You mentioned other organizations to partner with, perhaps. I know the Brunswick Environmental Action Team, Oceana. If you revitalize the Sunset Beach Environmental Resource Commission, I know oh my God, the North Carolina Coastal Federation.
It wasn't that side. The
Okay.
previous resolution had an organization that we were saying we're against it. Do we go that we're making a resolution against the Department of Interior decision to allow 5 companies and oppose doing that? Or, you know, that's the type of thing, is who are we pointing the arrow at saying, we don't like what you did and please change it?
Your resolution currently is rather generic, so you're asking for specifics, which would make it a better resolution. I agree with you. So I think you would probably, exactly what you just said, those,
Well, that's something that BEAT could help us with, maybe
Sure.
finding some of those answers.
absolutely, yes.
Charlie?
I do think we need to pursue this and look into it. I have the same concerns as John does, the cost, what effect it'll have on the town. Keeping those two things in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we follow through on this, whether Grady gets in on, or the mayor. I know Neil will help us. I'd like to follow up on this and continue on with this, and hopefully we will take part in this lawsuit.
I second that motion.
I just have a comment.
Discussion? Go ahead, Mark.
I just have a comment. I think we need to walk before we run, guys. This was not even on our agenda. Now, we're here asked to vote on something or make an agreement. I agree with Charlie, we should make a lawyer look into this, see what the cost, what the consequences, if it does go to legal matters 10 years from now or 5 years. That could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, where are we obligated on that? I'd like to know that before we sign anything or go make a resolution to adopt this.
Mr. Mayor?
Jan?
I, as a member of an environmental organization, in the past have worked with Southern Environmental Law Center on several different issues. At no time did we have to provide any money to Southern Environmental Law Center. And I believe, did we work with Southern Environmental Law Center on the West End, Grady?
Yes, in part, and I'm happy to look into the lawsuit that's been filed. I speak with the attorneys in the lawsuit. I have no problem doing that and report back to council with my views of the lawsuit, explain it to you, and give you my take on what the financial contribution, if any, of the town would be required. Do it every day. Be happy to look into it.
I try to add that to your motion that our attorney look into it.
Well, I didn't know where we would go from here, but I want to definitely follow through. And Mark, we're not running, we're walking at first.
Okay, good.
It's not my idea to say, jump in right now and do this. We have to look into it. And I'm fine with what you want to add.
Mr.
Further
Mayor,
discussion, Rich?
yeah, before we get formal, put a motion through, don't you think it would be advisable if you and Mr. Richardson had sidebar discussions to see what the implications would be before I think we all want to do this. I mean, it's our desire to do it, but don't you think you should have a sidebar with Mr. Richardson just to see what the overall impact is and then proceed from that point?
Well, that was exactly what my motion was.
And I'm perfectly willing to do that also, Grady.
You get a second on this one.
And
You already have a second.
If I could just make sure either you or Lisa give me the handout with the information, then I can look into that and report back to you, Hiram and Lisa, whomever.
Well, if there's no more discussion then, all those in favor of Mr. Nern's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Well, I think it's about time we heard from you all a little bit more. This is the public comments section. You're welcome to make, at this point, in this section, comments about any item that we're handling on the agenda today. There will be a later public comments section for comments on anything. So if you would begin by stating your name and address, and you have up to 3 minutes for your comments.
May I interject?
Go ahead.
I received 2 emails from people who could not be here, partly because it's very short notice, actually, that this was right there on the decision agenda today. And I would like to ask Greg Jensen to read one of the emails, and then I'll read the second one.
Okay, that's fine. Greg?
And Greg's a victim because he walked in first.
Just got back last night.
Greg, real quick, they're gonna give the name of the person that sent the email.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. This is from J.
Greg,
Gary.
Greg, I'm sorry, remind me of your address, please.
Oh, 1309 East Main, sorry. Speaking for J. Gary Hill, 408 29th Street. My wife and I have been property owners at Sunset Beach since February of 2001. We have been beachgoers to the North Carolina beaches for more than 40 years. Every year, we have a family reunion with as many as 45 members attending. Because we have so many members who are at various ages, from infants to teenagers to elderly, and wanted to have an experience that all could enjoy. Therefore, Sunset was perfect since we could erect a cabana so that the young children and our elderly members could enjoy being on the beach and not be exposed to the sun. This was especially important to our family, also because of my special needs grandson. This was very critical in our decision because the over 45 members of our family come from across the United States. The one-week family reunion would normally involve 3 to 4 homes being leased to accommodate all our families. It is my observation that the requirements for the cabanas on the beach are working well and should not be changed. There are always some that do not follow the rules and everything in our society, and they should be dealt with accordingly. In fact, I have on occasion approached those not obeying the rules, and I was always thanked because they were unaware of the requirements. Therefore, I implore you to keep Sunset Beach a family destination for many generations to come so that they can have family reunions at Sunset Beach. Please do not support any movement to restrict the cabana use. I appreciate your service to Sunset Beach and thank you for considering my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Miss-
Greg.
I also have a letter, but after you.
This is unprecedented that we do this. I've never seen us read other people's emails. If they can't make it here, then they're not read. I don't understand why we're doing this, just because it's dredging. You know, I think as a town council, Lisa, is this precedent? Have we ever done this before, allowed people to speak on behalf of other people by their emails? It has been done? All right.
Should I go speak from here, or do you want me to go forward?
I think we'd all be, find it fine for you to speak from where you are.
Okay, this email, I received an email and it said, Mr. Corbett, since I am unable to attend the Sunset Beach Town Council meeting, if possible, would you please read my comments posted on the Friends of Sunset Beach Facebook page into the meeting record? And it's from Bob Northington, 409 18th Street, Sunset Beach, North Carolina. I'm John Corbett, 1313 Canal Drive, Sunset Beach. Mr. Northington wrote, I bought at Sunset over 20 years ago and think it is a wonderful place to relax and play. The only problem is the town council now called an inappropriate word. I spent over 23 years on the Winston-Salem Council, and though I have seen and heard it all, wrong. This group of council members, I replaced the words that was there, doesn't want to dredge to allow Sunset Beach to thrive, and wants to ban cabanas so young children, older citizens, and fair-skinned beachgoers cannot have shelter from the wonderful sunshine at sunset. I am seriously thinking of changing my Barrier Island location. Thoughts? And there were other comments that responded to this on the Facebook page, but I'm not going to read those.
Jan?
I have a letter. It's from Chip and Margaret Dillon, 1616A East Main Street, Sunset Beach. I am Jan Harris, 206 North Shore Drive, Sunset Beach. Dear Mayor and Town Council, we hope you are all well and that the summer season is off to a good start for you. We are Chip and Margaret Dillon, and we own 1616A East Main Street, where we live part-time. Our main home is in Pinehurst. First of all, we are grateful that the town facilitates the Sunday morning worship services that are led by Calabash Covenant Presbyterian Church. Thank you. Second, we have much documentation, parentheses, videos, photos, parentheses, of trespassing and existing code violations regarding the setup, takedown, and use of cabanas on the beach. We will spare you this documentation at this time, but we wanted to request that the town consider an outright ban of cabanas with a sunset clause, as the proposed new ordinance will not solve the issues that give rise to the numerous complaints that you and the police no doubt receive. It's easy to see how the folks involved in setup and tear down can simply become independent contractors and nothing will change. Certainly you can see that. Specifically, please simply ban the cabanas from our beautiful beaches. You could even make it effective 9/30/2019 so that those with livelihoods depend on the cabana rental business can contribute throughout the rest of this season and next season. This should allow the rental companies to earn a return on their sunk investment and, of course, provide ample opportunities for those working in the business to make other arrangements.
Thank you. Members of the audience, comments, please? Gary? And then you'll be second. There was a nod in that direction that caught you both.
Good morning. My name is Gary Marriott. I live at 646 Oyster Bay Drive, directly across the street from Mr. Dern. We're neighbors. I have a comment. First, I want to say thank you to the current council, previous council, for all the extra work that's being done on the particularly important issue of dredging. It's extremely important. And then I was going to thank Mr. Neal for his patience. I did that during the break. I have, the rest of my comments are questions. The first one is on the Hurricane Passes Program revision that's on the agenda. It states both options, only island owners will have passes. So my question is, does this mean mainland property owners will not have any problems returning as long as the roads are passable without a hurricane pass unless the state or county restricts access? And I'm not looking for an answer today. It's just something I'd like to see resolved in the discussion. My other questions are regarding the dredging project update. Has there ever been a six-water, deep-water access 24/7, 365 to Sunset Beach, either from the ocean or into the intercoastal waterway? I don't know. I've heard discussions about it, but I don't know. Second is, since there are legitimate concerns regarding the potential environmental issues, as well as who will pay for and how soon it will happen, future maintenance, does the town council owe it to current and future owners to conduct an EIS to determine once and for all whether the current proposal is really necessary, since the deep water access typically has a positive impact on a minority of property owners, but the long range has potential impact on everyone? I'm speaking about that from experiences at Wrightsville and Shell Island. I'm a coastal guy. I've been here all of my life, on and off. The third question was for Mr. Neal. Does Mr. Neal think it would be wise to conduct an EIS prior to beginning the project? And I asked him that question during the break. His comments were basically, it would be an insurance project to be sure that going forward it's done properly. And his second comment was that if the variance that's being proposed is not approved, it will go into an EIS. Thank you, and I'll look for the answers. I had a doctor's appointment at 11. I'm late.
Thank you, Gary.
Sorry, thank you.
Peter Scott, 1527 North Shore Drive, Sunset Beach Island. We live at the east end of the island on the water. Our home's on the water with a dock, but we don't own a boat. We aren't boaters. But we are strongly in favor of dredging. I want to just spend a minute why. I think it affects not only our property value, but the conditions out there are getting worse and worse, and they are going to affect property values in all of Sunset Beach. We overlook the bay out there from our house, and every day there are boats stranded out there. There are people walking around on the flats. When we moved in there 5 years or so ago, there was a nice deep channel that was wide and worked for all tidal conditions. Today, the channel, the boating channel, which runs right past the end of our dock, has narrowed down to about 12 feet at low tide, depth of a foot or less. It's hard for any boat to get there, and the sand is migrating. It has migrated over the last 5 years. It is not going to be very long before that whole channel is filled in, and even at more than low tide, you are not going to have any boating access through there. These conditions are already affecting the rental market in the town and affecting our property values. Our property values have not kept up with Ocean Isle Beach. Part of it is because of navigation issues. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about for a minute was to ask you to reverse the decision you made earlier to base dredging assessments on linear feet of water frontage. You spent a lot of time today on the unfairness of assessing the Marys Creek and Turtle Creek people for big numbers. The lots vary over there. We live at the east end of the island. We have a pie-shaped lot that's got a whole lot of water frontage just because of the shape of the lot, but we don't get anything out of that. We have one dock, just like everybody else. That's our water access. We don't get any additional access from from those additional feet. And to us, it makes no sense to be assessing us 4 or 5 times what everybody else has to pay for the same water access and the same value that is added by that. What I would urge you to do is to take a look at the process you used when you did the sewer. There were a lot of differences there too. Lot sizes, number of bedrooms, different things at the lots. But eventually it was determined that the fair thing to do was to base the assessments on per lot. That's what you should do here. That's the fair thing to do. It's simple, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Ruth?
Good morning. Ruth Reynolds, 703 North Shore Drive. I wanted to speak on cabanas. I think allowing cabanas is a bad investment for the town of Sunset Beach. This has been years and years and years and years and years and years. Did I say that 10 times? That's how many years that this has been allowed. It's collected a lot of dust and a lot of layers, and it's not going to go away. I think it's time to give the taxpayers a chance to do without them for a season and see how it goes, or let the taxpayers do a survey, vote whether they still want to be allowed or not. And the new revised ordinance is not working, period. It's not being enforced is a significant problem, and it creates extra work and extra expense for the taxpayers and for our town, and for the officials to go out and try to enforce these. As I went out this summer, and I did not have to go up and down, I could merely walk out and see the rules and regulations not being obeyed. In fact, they were totally being ignored in some areas. I walked out and I see empty cabanas still on the beach. And I mean, I'm not talking about, I went out and set my umbrella up. And I was there for 3.5, 4, 5 hours. I think one day I spent 6 out there. And I still see the cabanas that was empty when I went out. They were empty, still empty when I left. They was not used. I still see the cabana business carried on as usual, as it was before. Just a little bit more discreet. And I also see a lot of claimed space. It's no longer just putting up a tent or putting up a cabana. It's chairs in front, large coolers and thing on the side. It really takes up more than a 10 by 10 or 12 by 12 space on the beach. That should be everybody's space. And another thing that I saw when I walked out was tarps, especially one that caught my attention. It was not a cabana, it was not a tent, it was tarp with probably 6 different triangle areas that the people that had erected it tried to stabilize the tent, but it was 5 or 6 feet in front of the tarp, which is very unsafe. And I thought, okay, so I pointed it out to one of the beach patrol, and I thought, I think that was the day I was there, an extensive long period of time. And I thought, well, okay, it's not being taken care of today, maybe tomorrow. I went out the next day, the same tarp was being used with all the rules not followed as far as the stabilizers, and it's just very, very unsafe. I think it's time to revisit and re-vote on this, and I hope that you do consider a total ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
My name is Carol Aspey. I own a house at 414 36th Street, and I've had it for 22 years. It's a rental. I do have a cabana, and my family sets up the cabana exactly as it is told, it is asked to do, and brought down at the right time. I feel that the families that have come over those 22 years depend upon the beach, Sunset Beach in particular, because we offer something that other beaches don't offer, the protection of their children, of their adults. And I walk that beach. I disagree with the last speaker because I walk the beach and I noticed that under the cabanas, they keep all the chairs and they keep all their ice compartments and everything. It's very neat. Whereas if you walk on the beach, it's everywhere. And so in favor of having those cabanas, I speak highly of it, as do neighbors of mine that couldn't be here that feel the same way. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments?
I'm John Hopgood from Sunset Beach Trading Company, 423 Sunset Boulevard South on the island. I'm not sure if the tarp the previous speaker spoke of was the Shabumi shade. I'm here. All the council members and mayor received an email from Dane Barnes from a company called Shabumi Shade, which is simply a fabric, a section of fabric flown from a one pole that is anchored to the ground. with a guy line that comes out. It weighs less than 4 pounds. Anybody could carry it out to the beach, erect it for themselves. I don't know where the council's going with cabanas. I don't sell cabanas for that very purpose. Either way the council wants to go with cabanas is up to the council, but I would encourage the council to look at future developments in technology and or the evolution of shading devices that is going to come in the future. And there's over 3,000 patents related to umbrellas pending in the patent office. So changes are happening. This is a solution that if I felt comfortable that the council would not prohibit people from using, I would sell it at my store, but I can't sell it if the people I'm selling it to are going to get in trouble for having it. But we would be interested, and you received the email with pictures and videos demonstrating the safety features of this product. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
My name is William Blake. I live on Shoreline Drive West. Gentleman over here already mentioned it. The past
Sir, what was your address?
825 Shoreline Drive West. The hurricane passes. The two revisions just seem to apply to island residents. I have the same concern. I always found to have that pass, at least if there was damage to your house, you get back to your house, and the police would at least know that you belong in the neighborhood anyway. I know it's impossible to seal off the mainland as well as you can seal off the island, but there's a thought that that pass is a little bit more security getting into the island to check on your house, and that's basically my concerns. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you all for your comments. We are now up and back on track to with old business, and we've done A, so we're at B, and this will correspond to pages 7 to 12 in your agenda packet. And it is a proposal to replace two documents that we have now that deal with town council meetings and public participation and discourse at the meetings, with two alternative documents, one that are just focused a little bit differently. One really focuses just on meetings and provides perhaps a little more detail about each section of the meeting and responsibilities for it. And then the other focuses more on discourse and decorum for both attendees and council members. Not designed to be a major contribution, but perhaps in a minor way, just to present two items more clearly separated. Is there a motion from council to adopt the new?
I make a motion to adopt this new resolution for decorum.
Is that both or just the decorum?
Both.
Okay, and is there a second?
Second.
I want to make sure I understand what the motion is. This includes council meetings, decorum, discourse, and public participation, all of those four components. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Plus the understanding town council meetings document.
Okay. I only have one question.
Go ahead.
It's been a sort of a
Microphone.
consistent.
Rich, microphone.
I only have one question, because it's been an inconsistent practice over the years. On special meetings, are citizens allowed to participate and ask questions? This has been managed inconsistently for a number of years. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. My preference would be to allow them. I'm just...
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and as I think back, I believe I can recall instances where it's been done one way or the other. Does council have any comments about that question? Hiram?
Oh, I was just going to point out traditionally, in order to conduct business in a timely manner, and to prevent arguments amongst the audience, most councils, not just here, but most places don't allow that during that part. That's why they have the public comment sections. It's not against any rules. You can do it if you'd like. It's just usually for decorum purposes. Physical altercations have been known to break out in some chambers when the public gets heated on a subject matter. I'd also recommend that if you go, you do it for all subjects, not for just some subjects. You know, some people like to do the idea that if it's a really important topic, we'll just let them talk during that point. It's those topics that really cause the biggest divisions between the audience, and it's easier for the council to make better decisions when they're not dealing with crowd control. Just point out the underlying history of why you generally don't do that.
And thank you for that. It's a good point. And on the other side is trying to give community members more opportunities to participate. So
it's a give and take kind of thing.
It is.
If you go for one, you've got to take the other with it. So it's
Maybe
I'm not in favor or against anything. I'm just pointing it out.
Mayor, maybe we can shorten the time they can talk.
Well, that would be, we could consider that issue. Perhaps this specific issue is something that we should think about and bring back at another time after folks have had more time to think about it. Lisa, you've had a comment that I wanted to get to you.
Special meetings are called specifically by two council members, the mayor or the mayor pro tem. At that time, they have to state what the purpose of the special meeting is for. And if they want public comment at that time, it has to be added at that time, or once they get in the meeting with all members present.
Okay.
They can add it.
Thank you.
It has to be a majority though, Lisa, that adds it, not just the two?
Yes.
Okay.
If we make it a standard practice, then it won't be selective whether you add or don't add it. So
Well, there may be situations where we really don't want comment, Rich.
Why?
I don't know why, just leave it open.
To me, public information, awareness, participation, if we had a special meeting, let's say regarding dredging, I think the public should be able to ask questions. If we have a special meeting regarding cabanas, I think the public should ask questions. If we have a special meeting about the budget, I think the public should ask questions, period.
And all of that, I agree with you, Rich, but there may be circumstances where it doesn't apply.
I haven't seen any for the 15 years that I've lived here.
That's all. Lisa, I'm playing back in my mind the regulation that you, procedural regulation that you mentioned. If that suggests that we don't need to do anything else, that the possibility is there, but only if we designate it.
General statute states that you have to say what the purpose is. And if you want public comment, you have to say it then. It can't be added just because, oh, y'all want it today. It's to the discretion of whoever's calling that special meeting.
So that's a statute.
As
so
to
we
if
can't
they
change
allow
that.
it or not.
So Lisa, we can't change that.
Correct.
Okay, so-
Every time that you call a special meeting, I'm going to ask you what the purpose is.
Right.
And if you don't tell me public comment's not going to be added.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you.
I think that's a workable situation, as long as we all know the rules. I think that's workable.
Well, it's not only for us, it's for hopefully for future council members too. I mean, we may
Correct.
understand it, but hopefully there's,
Correct, but
That's
hopefully
Lisa's
they will
job.
learn the rules.
She was coughing and missed that.
Yeah, it was Lisa's job to make
You're
sure
all
we
going to
understand.
follow the law.
well, it's not the law so much as it is the rule to allow public comments at special meetings.
It's the law for you to state the purpose when you're calling a special meeting. And if you want public comment during
I
your
understand
special
that.
meeting,
I'm just trying to
then
say,
you add it.
I'm just trying to inject the fact that maybe that should be a mandatory part of it. That's all I'm saying.
You can't do that. That's in violation of the law. The law says whoever's calling the meeting specifies the purpose.
I understand, but if the council is aware of what we were trying to do, they would include that in their special meeting. That's all.
I think this is a very good document and needs to go in there. I have 3 points that I think need to be clarified. On page 9, we have the time of the meetings starting at 6, the evening, Monday evening meetings starting at 6 p.m. If we have closed meetings, they start at 6. Then at 6:45 is the work session, and then at 7 p.m. is the actual start of the meeting. So we don't want to mislead people to think that they should show up at 6 o'clock and then be sitting around for 45 minutes to an hour before they actually have the public meeting.
Grady did.
Yeah. The second item on page 10 relates to the council work sessions. Is that we don't have council work sessions on the second meeting of the month, the third Tuesday. And so it should be clear that it's only one special meeting. And then the third item is clarification on page 12. The first bullet, and I think we should include in there words that actually give the numbers and define what a quorum is for clarity, so it's not subject to miscalculation. We have 6 people on ours, so the basic quorum is 4 people. But it says if we have a vacant seat, that would only be 5 people, is that correct? And so the quorum would be 3, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and you get down to, if we have 2 vacant seats and 4 people, then you can't have a quorum. Unless you have 3 people show.
It'd still be 3.
So I mean, I think we should specify, just for clarity in the future, in case somebody gets confused the way I do. That's all. I think it's a good thing, and I think I would move that we adopt these 2 documents.
With those changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You would, seems to me someone needs to make a motion that would amend the motion that's pending, amend it to approve Mr. Corbett's suggested revisions.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I could clarify,
Please.
the meeting has to start at 6 o'clock because you have to be in an open meeting in order to go into closed. Now, we can alert the public that we're going into closed first, but the meeting still starts at 6 o'clock.
Except for when we don't have it closed.
What I'm,
Except
is what
we
he's
don't
getting
what
have
I'm
it closed.
saying is that this document should include that information so that we don't have people see 6 o'clock and come in and have to cool it for 45 minutes or more.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion on my motion that would change the things that John mentioned.
Thank you. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor of amending the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
No, you're
Well-
asking for a vote on the amended motion, not to amend. You already had a second that approved amending the motion, so now you're asking for a vote on the amended motion, to approve the amended motion.
I thought you were suggesting that we needed a motion that specified the word amendment, or we needed to include that in the motion.
No, what you included in the motion were John's alterations to the original motion. That got seconded. Now you're just voting on the whole motion as a whole.
You're voting on the motion as amended, whether to approve or or vote against these decorum resolutions as amended by Mr. Corbett's suggested revisions.
I'd like to make a motion that we amend our motion.
That's already been done. You already agreed to the amended motion. You just need to have a vote on the motion as amended.
I'd like to put a motion as amended.
No, you're just calling for a vote. Mayor,
vote, okay.
just call for a vote on the motion as amended.
Call for the vote.
Just call for a vote on the motion as amended.
Seconded.
Call for the vote.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Lawyers.
Thank you. Item C is an announcement. Those of you who've been in Sunset Beach for a few years know that periodically we have had general community meetings in which council members, town staff are present, and members of the community, all members of the community are invited and are welcome to ask whatever questions they would like or make comments. I'm not sure there was one in 2018. There was one in 2017.
There was one last year also, Mr. Mayor. There was
Last year, meaning this year?
It was
No, 2017.
last year.
Okay, yeah,
That was in-
2017.
That was in Sea Trail.
As you know, we may no longer have access to the Sea Trail building that we have used in the past, but a community meeting has been scheduled for Saturday.
No, we're recommending you schedule. This is.
Thank
that-
you.
Yeah.
Okay, then the recommendation is to set a community meeting date of Saturday, January 26th at 10 o'clock a.m. and using the Seaside Station Property Owners Association building, the small building used for voting. Its capacity matches well with the number of people who've attended the community meeting in the past. So hopefully that will work out that way.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to file a motion to have the community meeting on Saturday, January 26th, year 2000, and what is it now, 19, at 10 a.m. at the Seaside Station POA building.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. In item D, under old business, is the Hurricane Passes program revision, and we'll turn to Hiram for that.
Thank you. In previous years, it's the pass system's not working out well. People wait till the last minute. Some people come in early, property changes hands, and then those people don't have passes. It's so what we've tried to do here is take a revisionist approach, and to address the mainland concerns, we don't block off the mainland. We might block off a road if it's horribly flooded or damaged, sinkholes, things like that, but we're not going to stop people coming into the mainland to get to their homes, because once the callback notice is, people are welcome back at their houses. I mean, the proof of them being there is not really our concern. We will shut down the bridge to the island, though, where we will have a person stationed to check these passes. The only way the mainland would be shut off is really as if the National Guard or EM, somebody came in, and then our hurricane passes aren't getting you across that border. The only thing getting you across that border is a government ID that says you work here and you're part of the emergency response team. So even property owners won't get back in with our hurricane passes. They're not that kind of official pass. So the mainland's not really a concern at this point because we have no way of blocking off every entrance to the town in the first place. It really is just for the island, because we will block access and we will restrict access to that that location. So there's really no need for the mainland to have these passes. It's just a waste of their time to try to come get them, because we're not going to stop them from going home. Instead, like I said, unless the road's out.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Hurricane Pass program, the possible revision number 2.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And discussion of the motion and option 2. Hiram, did
Real quick with option 2, so the public's aware of what option 2 is, that'd be the town taking the time and staff resources to mail these to all the property owners at the time of January or February area. We will reserve extra passes held back for island holder, or people who may change hands, property may change hands. We'll also hold back for people, for permit contractors when they're building a new house on the island. But that being said, just for full opening awareness, that's going to be about a $5,000 cost every year, give or take.
I have something to say. You know, it's $5,000 again, Charlie. Here's $5,000. People can't pick up a pass. Is our responsibility to hand carry these passes to everybody at Sunset Beach or on the island? I get mine as soon as I can get it. And if people want to get theirs mailed to them, let them have the responsibility to pick up the couple dollars. It shouldn't be the town's responsibility to send these passes to these people. I was here the day of the hurricane. It was wrapped around the building. And I knew a lot of these people, they lived here. They weren't out of town, Charlie. They live here. They were just too lazy to come and get it. Let's call it what it is. We shouldn't have an expense of $5,000 to someone who lives at Sea Trails, can't come over and get the pass from January to May. Or, I mean, I would extend May 31st to June 31st. But to us to acquire that $5,000 cost, I'm against that.
Mr. Mayor?
Let's see, Charlie and then Jan.
I'm not sure about the figure, and I figured that would come up during discussion. We spent almost $5,000 on mailing the dredging letter to all the townspeople. This would be a lot less people. And I just think, I don't want to see our staff screwing around at the last minute, taking the abuse that they took for some of those people that, if you want to call them lazy, did not take care of getting their pass when they should have. It just seems to simplify the matter. Hiram, have we looked into the cost of mailing them?
Not exactly. The full cost actually goes into not just the mailing, using the mailing house, the letters, the passes themselves, the printing cost of those, and the time and effort for staff to produce everything. It should be close to, and my real estimate would be $3,500, but I don't trust that always being the same. We get new homeowners every day. There's new property. Property is sold every other day. I mean, we have to do multiple things here going on with this process. So my figure is roughly upwards of $5,000 for the 6 months that we'd have to deal with getting the passes in people's hands.
Charlie, I just feel we're enabling these people, again, not to be able, on their own accountability, to come get their passes, Charlie.
Mr. Mayor.
Jan.
Thank you. In years past, and I think this was maybe when only the island got passes, but we used to pay $5 a piece. For instance, if you needed 2 passes, you paid $5 for each pass. And it's nice that that doesn't happen anymore, but I think mailing the passes to the island people especially is a good idea, because we have so many property owners that live in Ohio and all other states across the nation, and they may not be able to get here, but they may want to get here after a hurricane. So, I think mailing the passes is a good idea.
Make them pay for it.
Mr. Mayor?
Rich?
If I may, I don't know how many homes there are on the island, but a lot of island taxpayers do not live here. They rent their homes in the summer, and they come here maybe during the fall season or winter to check on their rental property. The island residents pay much more in taxes than other folks because their homes are assessed at a higher value. They live in a very vulnerable area where their property will have a high probability, if there's a hurricane, to be damaged. I think we owe them the courtesy of Hiram's proposal number 2. I think we owe them the courtesy and that this be renewed every year. And I think to worry about the mailing cost is, to me, somewhat micro. Thank you.
If I could ask a quick question, is there another mailing that would happen at a suitable time with which we could just combine the hurricane passes? Nothing really.
We don't really usually mail anything other than recently when y'all have requested it. But I'm just lay this out there. I'm just giving y'all everything here. We don't have a druthers in this. I mean, it's going to take us the same amount of staff time regardless to do all this work. Some staff prefers the mailing option, some don't. It's that simple. But I'm not hung up on the cost. I just want to remind y'all that there is a cost.
Okay. Thank you, John.
One of the key things, if we're talking about people having to come in and get their passes, which in a big term, I'd rather save the money. But our communication system in this town is not perfect. And all of our people who live on the island, are not going to watch YouTube, are not going to read the minutes, are not going to see the agenda items, and are not going to hear it. Then many of them won't necessarily look on the website to see that we're now having a new policy there. And it's with that in mind that I think we should mail them out.
John, can I just add something? If I agree on this, number 2 vision,
Yeah.
and these goes out to mailing, and these people get it, and they come back 4 months later and say, well, I never received it, then should we not then make them pay the $5? Well,
I haven't thought about the $5, how to pay it and how to manage an account for it. I mean, that causes staff time and accountability to handle those things. But it does bring up, the second point that I have is we still have to retain some flexibility. We may not catch all of the people who are living in a house. This past time, we had a couple of people where the owners were in one part of the world and a family member or a friend was actually residing in the place for an extended period of time. And when the word came out, they had to come over here, and in this case, in one particular case, it was after we had closed down operations, and the police department accommodated them and helped them out. But we have to be, willing and ready to accommodate special circumstances too. Not encourage it, but accommodate it. But the idea is not to have 500 people coming in for passes 2 days before the storm, but maybe to have 5 people come in for passes 2 days before the storm, which is a different and a much more manageable issue. I think it should be mailed out, and we leave some flexibility for unforeseen circumstances at the end.
Other comments?
There's a motion
I
on
still
the
think,
table.
I still think we should mail them. I don't want to spend the $3,500 to do that. But I just think it's the easiest and best way to do it.
All right.
Can I call the question?
You certainly may.
I would like to call the question.
Thank you, Jen.
Let's see, call of the question requires a second. Is there a
Second.
I think.
Well, part of it though is you're calling the question, so what's
So we'll vote.
What's actually the motion?
Yeah.
To mail the,
Yeah, the motion is Charlie's motion to adopt possible revision number 2.
With some flexibility for unusual circumstances is my amendment to that.
Oh.
Not absolute. Only new owners will be allowed and contractors will be allowed. I mean, and that's an absolute that's very hard to live with.
Seems that we're making something very simple complicated. There are always going to be exceptional or in different circumstances that you cannot capture, things that we haven't even thought of that could evolve.
That's what I said.
can I call the question?
I'm just saying, the motion is,
The motion on the floor is for adoption of possible revision number 2. And at this point, just that.
yes.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
No.
Okay, I believe that was by 4 to 1, the motion carrying. The next item on the agenda, page 16 in your packet, is on Citizen Beach parking, and this item will be led by Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has been on the agenda before. You have the agenda report that I've included in your packet. We have identified a site that we need to discuss with the council, and that matter will be discussed in closed session. I have always had a desire, not only me as a public official, but with many citizens, to have a specified area for citizen beach parking in Sunset Beach. Our beach is small, it is getting overcrowded, there are considerable developments that are popping around in our area. Brunswick County is the biggest growing county, I think one of them in the country. There's development all around us here, and they're going to go to the beach. And which beach do you think they're going to go to? They're going to go to Sunset Beach. So we need to be, we need to anticipate potential needs and future needs for our taxpayers. And one of them has always been a defined area for citizen beach parking. That's my comment.
Okay. Thank you. John and then Charlie?
I think it would be appropriate, because this is a sort of touchy and complex process, if we could get an explanation in terms of how the process works to everybody, so you understand what's going on in terms of going through locations and determining costs, how much we're willing to spend, who's able to park there, how the area is controlled and managed, and things like that. Recognizing there are specifics that we can only do in a closed meeting.
Other than the real estate transaction discussion plan, I think that is, that should be publicly discussed. We don't know, I mean, if we were able to get a site for beach parking, we have to yet discuss, I mean, and we don't know, there are many unanswered questions, but I would suspect that if an area, let's say,
no examples.
Let's say that we made an offer on a site and somebody agrees, and then we have all of those financial assessments, impact, and how they will be applied, whether or not we give people annual passes at a cost to offset the cost of the lane. These are all variables that need to be discussed at the appropriate time.
What I ask is that this process be explained to the people.
Mr. Mayor.
Process be explained to the citizens.
I thought I did. I didn't.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, what do you want explained?
Me?
Let's see.
May I just weigh in?
Our lawyer would like to speak.
Grady, go ahead. Charlie, Jane.
I'm just going to give the legal spill on this. Is the first question, it seems to me, is whether or not the town can even do what you're trying to do. Because if you cannot exclude members of the public who are unfortunate to not be members of the town, then we don't even have to worry about the rest of the discussion. You have to first see if we can do it lawfully. And then the process, I think, that Mr. Corbett is talking about is why some of this would need to be in closed session. Well, you don't want to disclose what land you may be interested in, or terms of an offer that you want to make, or anything about the details of a potential offer to purchase and sell by the town, if it's going to work a disservice or a disadvantage to the town, discussing that in open session. So the process would be, first to me, to get you an opinion on, are we going to be on good grounds legally to do this? And then the second step, it seems to me, is you go into closed session and you talk about identifying potential parcels. You talk about identifying the term sheet of what you would want to do, perhaps engaging a real estate agent to help you negotiate the terms of that sale. And you want to do that in closed session so that if there's a deal reached, then you can report that in open session without sending a disadvantage to the town.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Charlie?
I wish every resident had a parking place and all our visitors had parking places. That's just not realistic. And I think the cost for this is going to be excessive. Number one, the cost of land. If you're looking at buying vacant property, the general price for oceanfront is $500,000. Second row, somewhere between 350 and close to 5. Get mid-islands, it drops a lot. Who's going to want a parking lot next to their home? What happens to the stormwater? Are you going to pave this or not? We'd have to deal with the stormwater and whether pervious or impervious. How many employees will it take to manage this? Because it would have to be managed. For the number of parking places we gain, I don't think it's worth the cost. And remember, it's only for 6 to 8 weeks a year.
Mr. Mayor?
Jan, you're up next.
I believe that this should be combined with the other parking problems that we have in this town. And we have a number of parking areas where we have parking problems, and they need to be addressed. And I also want to say, everybody that knows this town knows that we have a very serious safety problem with parking on Main Street in this town. This also needs to be addressed, and I would like to suggest that we put it maybe on our list of the directives, that we look at all of our parking problems in a combined effort to improve parking in this town, even if that means hiring a parking consultant, expert parking consultant. That is what Ocean Isle did when they were having severe parking problems. But I'd like to explain one thing. One reason Ocean Isle did the things that they did to improve their parking is because they got renourishment for their beaches. And any beach that gets renourishment, the Army Corps of Engineers has a formula that you have to have so many parking spaces per mile of beach before you're eligible for that renourishment. Sunset Beach already meets the formula. Even if we took parking off of Main Street, it already meets it, way beyond expectations. What we need to do is for the safety of our tourists and our people. So I would like to suggest that we make this a part of our future directives for a meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
Mark?
You know, I've been a town council for 3 years. This issue comes up every year, and the same answer. When the lots are full, the island is full, go to another beach. I've talked to Mark Kaplan several times. He was on a parking commission for 2 years. They studied this extensively. There was no collusion, end to this story. We just don't have enough parking spaces. And what are you going to go and buy, $250,000 lot to put 12 to 15 cars? And then have expense of managing that? There's no huge piece of property on the island. I would look into a shuttle program off the island. I'd look into that. But to buy property for a couple residents of Sunset Beach, I'm not for it.
Mr. Mayor, this is getting beyond what the initial plan was. And that's basically Hiram and I picked out a site. Now, if the council's not interested, I'm not going to waste my time. We're already throwing on the table a whole bunch of negatives without even knowing what we're trying to do. We picked out a site. And the other matter is, there is a legal question that I would like to ask Attorney Richardson. And it's one of the issues that are a part of this. There are many issues a part of this. The town gets funding from the state, as you well know. I think, in taxes. If you buy a piece of property for parking, it's public land, true?
I'm not going to get into
All right,
giving
okay,
answers
okay,
of legal questions.
I'm not going to
about-
put you on the spot, but I assume that if the town did something like this, naturally it would be legal. And if it identified it as citizen beach parking, that other people would have the opportunity who may not be citizens to buy a sticker to use it. In other words, you need a sticker to park. Or is that a question that we need an answer to?
Your first question is whether you can exclude, you can come up with classes by which to discriminate as to who can and cannot park there. If that's lawfully able to be done, then the next question is whether you all want to pursue something like that. And you look at the cost-benefit analysis. You know, you might decide you want to build a Town of Sunset Beach parking deck, and I have no idea. But you can't get to second until you get the first question answered, whether or not you can take town funds and buy land to only allow certain class of people and exclude a different class of people. And until you get that question answered by yours truly, everything else is just, honestly, is putting the cart before the horse, right? So before you even start talking about identifying parcels of land, whether or not you even want to do this, whether you want to pay that certain price for it, stickers or no stickers, parking meters or no parking meters, doesn't matter unless the first question is answered in the affirmative, that the town can do what you're kind of envisioning.
Yeah.
Can you answer that now, or do you have to
No.
go do research?
Are you sure?
Yes.
All right.
Can you answer it next month?
The second January meeting,
7th.
when's the second one? Probably
By this,
by the 15th.
by the 15th.
Do you need it sooner? No. There's another matter, the ERC thing that you've asked.
No, I just want to do it in such a way that we have this answered, and then maybe, and then at that time have the closed session, or we could have the closed session tonight, or today, just to show the council the lot. They may not even be interested.
Well, let me propose that we move forward this way. Because you and Hiram have already done some research, let's have the two of you share what you have learned with us in closed session. After today's meeting, we will ask Mr. Richardson to answer that key question and have an answer for us by January 15th. Also on, let's see, well, I guess we would want to wait until we have that answer before we do what Jan suggested, but maybe we're thinking then at the first February meeting, we would be sure to look at the broader picture, the variables, and see if there's a plan that makes sense for us. Does that make sense to everyone?
Excellent, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So, Grady, would you like to have a motion directing us? We are okay with?
I'm
Okay.
good with
Okay.
the consensus of the council
Yes, I believe there is that.
and the instructions, and then we can bring it up in a later meeting. And I think Jan's is more of a generalized global. Let's assess and analyze the parking situation now. How can it be improved? That sort of thing. That's more to me a broader view of it. Doesn't really require my legal opinion on her idea, because that's policy, and that's her saying, let's investigate the parking needs of the town now and how we can improve it for the future. That really doesn't have anything to do with buying a piece of land and excluding a group of people off of it.
Okay, then I think it sounds like we're all in agreement that that would be the way to proceed. Thank you all.
I hate to say this, but can we take a break?
Yeah, we sure can. Rich, you mentioned something about today, and you used the word tonight, and I thought, well, maybe you were onto something there.
My flight to Boston leaves at 10 tonight.